deep river that twists its way deep into the interior. But if you want more civilization, there's a big marina at Green Cove Springs and a smaller but exceptionally friendly and helpful one at Palatka, named the Boathouse Marina. Palatka itself should not be missed. It's an old river town that's full of 1800s buildings, and flower buffs will certainly welcome a visit to the Ravine Gardens, particularly during the annual Azalea Festival. South of Palatka, the river narrows and commences its third phase. From here, the river narrows and twists and turns its way southward to Sanford, which is the nominal head of navigation. We use the word nominal since you can go further if you have a small boat, but the river is unmarked, uncharted, and quite shoal. 10 miles upriver from Palatka, Dunn's Creek makes off to port, and just after you turn off on Dunn's Creek, and just before the new high-level bridge, one of the prettiest creeks on the river goes off to starboard. This is Murphy's Creek. You can take a very pleasant side trip through Murphy's and end up back on the main river, or you can spend a quiet night or two anchored somewhere in the creek. Dunn's Creek itself goes onwards to Lake Crescent, and a footnote of history is that the schooner Yacht America was scuttled in Dunn's Creek early in the Civil War. She was later raised, recommissioned, and used as a Union blockade boat. Back in the main river from Dunn's Creek southward is one of the loveliest sections of the river. It includes Buffalo Bluff, where there's a railroad bridge and dozens of anchorages in and amongst the Seven Sister Islands. And mile 81 is the town of Walika, and this is the last convenient town north of Sanford to stock up on supplies. Dockets, food, and fuel are available just north of town. And not too far below Walika, at mile 92, is the entrance to Lake George. This lake is only 10 miles long, but when you see it, you'll think you've been lost and you've been diverted back into the Atlantic Ocean again. Lake George has been called the bass capital of the world, and by the number of people bass fishing, I wouldn't doubt that statement for a minute. Branching off from the black water of Lake George are two perfectly clear water springs, both on the westerly side of the lake. The northern one is Salt Spring Creek. This has a bar across the entrance which effectively limits it to small craft, but it's well worth a little trip up the river to the spring. South of Salt Springs is Silver Glen Springs, which is pretty close to the south end of Lake George, and it's a very, very popular place on weekends. You can take 5 foot of draft close into the spring, but if you intend to visit Silver Glen on a weekend, go early because the place does get very crowded. Note, however, that the entire east side of the lake is marked danger area, and that's exactly what they mean. There's a pair of bombing ranges there. Fortunately, both of the ranges are marked very clearly on the chart and in real life. You shouldn't have any trouble, whatever, staying out of difficulties. 4 miles south of Lake George is the village of Astor, and there are a number of waterside restaurants and fish camps here. South of Astor, the river is really quite narrow, and a few miles further down,